15 years ago, my wife and I were living in Doha in Qatar. My wife was working in education and I was writing books. And Doha's a big, bustling, busy city. We were living in an apartment, and I'm a country boy from the country in New Zealand. And sometimes I felt that I just had to get out of town. But Doha, the land's a lovely place, but the landscape's kind of rubble and dust. The beaches aren't anything to write home about. But I'd heard of one place, one beautiful place called Qura Al Udaid, the inland sea that sat on the border of Qatar and Saudi Arabia. It was a massive inlet surrounded by beautiful white sand dunes, and I just knew I had to get there. It sounded fabulous. The problem was the road ended here, and there was a 30-kilometre journey across the desert to get to the inland sea. And we had friends with four-wheel drives, but no one knew the route, and no one knew anything about driving in the desert. And I was looking into it one day, and I was on Google Earth, and I happened to zoom in to the area, and I could see the vehicle tracks in the sand that showed me the route from the road end into the inland sea. And I traced it back. I could find a route that didn't lead into the high sand dunes, that didn't lead into desert camps, that didn't lead into dangerous areas of Sabqa. It's a big salt pan, and if you get into the wrong place of that, you can break through the crust and sink in up to your axles. And the next day I went out and I found the cheapest GPS that money could buy, a little Garmin E-Trex, and I took the coordinates off Google Earth and I entered them, and you had to push a button through the scroll through the digits to find the one you wanted. And every GPS coordinate is about 10 digits long. And this little GPS, its button, was about as hard to push as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's bicep. By the time I'd pushed it 40,000 times, I had a bruised thumbnail. But I had a route from the end of the road into Qura Al Udaid. I gathered my friends, and we had three pretty awful four-wheel drive vehicles. We had a shovel and a tow rope and virtually no idea of what we were doing. So as we drove out to the road end, we passed the sign, and it said, "Return safely, your children are waiting for you." Which was okay, except our daughter wasn't waiting for us. She was in the car seat in the back. Maybe not ideal. So we went out and we deflated our tyres at the end of the road. And we lined up the first slope. I was the passenger and Canadian Ken was driving the vehicle I was in. And I was worried. I was worried that we might not make it to the inland sea. I was worried that we might not make it past the first dune. I was worried that we'd get stuck in the sand and we'd have to survive off the mummified corpses of our dead friends. We lined up the first sand dune, and I said, "Straight up there." And I followed the route that I'd set on my GPS, and Ken goes, "Okay." And he floored it. We fired up the face of this low sand dune, up, over the top and down the other side. Our friends followed us. Then we came to the Sabqa, the big open salt pans. And we could see the vehicle's tracks had left black imprints right across the salt pan. So we followed those tracks and followed my GPS coordinates to the next salt pan, and we'd have to go over the tail end of these low sand dunes, and the sand was soft. We could see the tracks going over it. We went from one Sabqa over a low dune to the next Sabqa. We went over the low dune, and I glanced back, and my wife's vehicle, I could see it start to slow down. It was going, go, 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 go. It slowed, those sunk up to its axles in the soft sand. We looped around, went back to the front of it, and we got the shovel out. I started digging and I started digging. But we weren't getting very far very fast. Her wheels were just spinning. And we started looking at a tow rope, but then a serious-looking off-roader came the other way, and he backed up in front of her vehicle, and he got a strap out. As an Arabic gentleman, shackled it to the back of his car, put a shackle on the front of hers, and he said, "When I signal, you go, go, go." My wife was driving. She said, "Okay, okay." So he fired up his vehicle and he signalled and he went. And the snatch strap stretched and then plucked her up and out of the sand, dropped her on the hard pack. And he looked at us, he took his shackle off, he looked at us and he shook his head and he said, whatever you do, follow the tracks. Follow the tracks. And he took off again. So we turned around, we crossed across the next subcar and we had a final waypoint and I could see the route headed up and over some more dunes. So we turned up and we headed up over a low dune, over the top, through a soft bowl, up over a final crest, and there in front of us was Kora El Udeid, the inland sea. And we stopped there and we camped the night. And it was absolutely brilliant. And I went on to do a lot of off-roading. I became a senior member of a club and led trips through the desert and in Qatar and the UAE and in Oman. But that first trip really stood out. And it wasn't about me. What stood out was the fact that I could find my way there following the tracks of the people that had been there before. I could take them off Google Earth, I could see them in the flesh because someone had been there before and given me the confidence to follow that route, to go over a sand dune where I couldn't see what was on the other side, to drive across the subcar without sinking into my axles. Someone had been there before.